institutions that we support by paying tax and making donations, the king and his son are milking on an annual basis in return for an ancient privilege stolen during medieval times. And I wonder whether deep down we all know what the royal family represents. You know that hymn I got obsessed with a few years ago? Not the hymn itself, everyone likes all creatures great and small, but that little verse that no one knew about, or that we'd all forgotten about. The rich man in his castle, the poor man at his gate, God made them high and lowly and ordered their estate. In an increasingly godless world, how do you keep this sort of inequality? I don't like being the person that points out how ridiculous and miserable and hideously unfair this whole thing is.
Hello, fellow squatties. Welcome to Royal Telly. Today, we're diving into a topic that has been brought to light by the insightful James O'Brien on LBC. This issue, quite frankly, is one of the grimmest things we've heard about, and it involves none other than Charles and William. These two have been making the headlines for all the wrong reasons, following an investigation by the Sunday Times and Channel 4.
But taking money from organisations and institutions that the rest of us support by... I'm going to keep saying this. I can't get past it. When was the last time you made a donation to a charity? When's the last time you signed a cheque for your income tax if you're self-employed, or looked at your pay slip and balked at the amount of money making its way to the Treasury? You know my view on this. My view is quite rightly. But the king and the heir to the throne look at all of these organisations and see pound signs. So I want to do that thing I never do, which is ask you how disgusting you think this is.
The investigation revealed that Charles and William have been earning millions from contracts with public services and charities, institutions that we, the public, support with our taxes and donations. This revelation is shocking and disheartening, to say the least. O'Brien has been vocal in his criticism of these actions, stating that Charles and William are milking these institutions on an annual basis in return for an ancient privilege stolen during medieval times. He further points out the William tasking himself with solving homelessness while making a whopping £23.6 million from the Duchy that generates profits by charging the Navy, hospitals, schools, and prisons. The fact that these two are siphoning such an epic sum of money from institutions and organizations that we support is what O'Brien and we find hard to swallow. This isn't just about exploiting it's about exploiting the very people who are struggling to make ends meet, who are relying on these public services and charities. As Sussex supporters, we stand with James O'Brien in his criticism of these actions. This exploitation of public services and charities by Charles and William, or as they should be rightly called, the slumlords, is not just a royal issue, it's a societal issue that affects us all. It's time we shed light on this and hold those responsible accountable for their actions. Because at the end of the day, it's not about royal privileges. It's about doing what is right and just for the people.
But there's something, what's the word I want? There's something incongruous. That's a nice word, isn't it? There's something incongruous about Prince William, laudable though the impulse is, tasking himself with solving homelessness when he is taking £23.6 million from a duchy that generates profits by charging the army, the navy, hospitals, the prison service, schools and councils.
Let's take a moment to consider the magnitude of the situation. We're not merely talking about a few stray pennies here and there. We're talking about millions. Yes, you heard that right. Millions of pounds siphoned off from institutions that are already stretched to their limits. The National Health Service, for instance, is battling a pandemic while struggling to provide quality health care to all. Our state schools, on the other hand, are working tirelessly to impart knowledge and skills to the future generations. Then we have the Navy, tasked with protecting our shores and ensuring our nation's security. And let's not forget about our prisons, institutions that aim to reform and reintegrate individuals into society. All these institutions, each serving a critical role, have been seen by Charles and William as potential sources of profit. It's not just about the enormity of the sums involved, Although the alleged £23.6 million is nothing to scoff at, it's about the principle of the matter. But it gets worse. Claims suggest that these individuals have broken government rules by renting out properties with poor energy efficiency ratings. They've reportedly earned seven-figure sums through controversial multi-year deals with public services. All the while, Buckingham Palace continues to insist that the royal estates are sustainable, despite the glaring figures that suggest otherwise. The details are indeed grim, as James O'Brien rightly pointed out. Our tax money and donations intended for public services are being milked for profits. These funds, meant to support the vital services that keep our nation running, are instead filling the coffers of those who already live a life of privilege. But we at Royal Telly and as Sussex supporters, we see this for what it is, exploitation. And we agree wholeheartedly with everything James O'Brien has to say about these individuals. Our tax money and donations intended for public services are being milked for profits. The truth of the matter couldn't be more clear. O'Brien, in his unflinching honesty, highlights a stark incongruity that is impossible to ignore. He points out the paradox of William's efforts to combat homelessness while simultaneously profiting from the exploitation of key public institutions. Let's take a moment to let that sink in. Here we have a figure who has positioned himself as a champion for the homeless, yet he is implicated in the siphoning of an astronomical sum, to the tune of £23.6 million, from the very institutions that should be providing support to the most vulnerable among us. O'Brien's words paint a vivid picture. There is something incongruous about William, laudable though the impulse is, tasking himself with solving homelessness when he is taking £23.6 million from a duchy that generates profits by charging the Navy, hospitals, schools, and prisons.
I have a slightly unhealthy fascination with how far capped offers, forelock tuggers and client journalists will go to defend the indefensible. I'm not quite sure how you'd how would you even begin to defend this? In a country that we've, if we didn't know already, then we've learnt since the budget last week, is in dire need of financial injection, dire need of public service spending. To discover that the people for whom we wave flags whenever they get married or have a baby are, siphoning epic sums of money from institutions and organisations which we support by either paying tax or donating. That's the bit I can't get my head around. Every single institution on this list, we support by either paying taxes or donating on our taxed income to charities like the RNLI. And these guys, they take money out of it.
This isn't just about the money, though the sum is staggering. It's about the principle, the blatant hypocrisy. The irony is not lost on us that someone who claims to be working towards alleviating homelessness is profiting from institutions designed to support the public good. The NHS, schools, the Navy, prisons, these are not enterprises meant for personal gain. They are institutions we support through our taxes and donations, institutions that should be serving us, not padding the pockets of the privileged. O'Brien's criticism is a powerful reminder of the stark disparity between the image projected by William and the reality of his actions. It's a wake-up call, a call to see through the glossy veneer and confront the uncomfortable truth that lies beneath. The incongruity is glaring. It's a jarring contradiction that forces us to question the integrity of those who claim to serve the public good while benefiting from its exploitation. It's a scenario that's hard to wrap our heads around. The accusations against these two are multifold and quite serious indeed. It's been suggested that they've broken government rules by renting out properties with poor energy efficiency ratings, a move that not only harms the environment but also speaks volumes about their disregard for regulations. Moreover, these properties are not just any random buildings. They are part of the royal estates, and as such, their low energy efficiency ratings are a direct reflection of the care, or lack thereof, that Charles and William have for their inherited properties. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. The pair are also said to have engaged in controversial multi-year deals with public services from which they've allegedly earned seven-figure sums. These deals have reportedly been made with the NHS, schools, and military. all while Buckingham Palace insists the royal estates are sustainable. Imagine, institutions that we, the public, support through our taxes and donations are being exploited for monetary gain by Charles and William. It's a bleak picture indeed. The revelations about Charles and William's financial exploits are, in a word, grim. Yet they also serve to highlight the stark contrast between their actions and the conduct of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Harry and Meghan have consistently demonstrated integrity, compassion, and a commitment to causes greater than themselves. They have used their platform to uplift others, not to profit at the expense of public institutions and charities. The Sussexes have chosen a different path, one rooted in authenticity and service. They've demonstrated time and again that they are not bound by the same archaic rules and expectations that have ensnared others in the royal family. They have chosen to step away from the monarchy, to forge their own path, and to use their influence in a positive, meaningful way. This is why we at Royal Telly stand with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. We support their choice to break away from the harmful practices of Charles and William. We applaud their decision to live authentically and to use their platform to effect positive change in the world. And we are not alone in this. There is a growing global community of Sussex supporters who refuse to condone the actions of Charles and William. We are united in our belief that integrity, compassion, and service should be the guiding principles of those in positions of power and influence. So let us reiterate our commitment. We stand with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. We do not align ourselves with the actions of Charles and William, and we will continue to support Harry and Meghan in their efforts to make the world a better place. Thank you, fellow squaddies, for joining us on Royal Telly. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.